extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 7 years ago. Stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show, and I am Craig L. Hayes. Today is October 19th, 2024. And it's a little bit cloudy day. We've already done one podcast today. We're going to move on to the second one on a different topic, though. Today's topic is going to be an independent judiciary. An independent judiciary. So important to our republic. It's not even a joke, not funny or anything like that. It is deadly, deadly serious on the consequences of not having a judicial system that is not independent of political philosophy. So, let's talk about it. Let's look at it. It's a subject I love talking about. Anyway, it's the Constitution. Anytime I get to talk about stuff in the Constitution, I enjoy it. I love our Constitution. I revere it. The men who wrote it were absolute geniuses compared to the people we have today who are basically morons in so many ways. You know, politicians are basically not the brightest people on the planet, and they show that every day. But the people that wrote our Constitution, Madison especially, James Madison, man, a brain beyond brain. You know, influences like Thomas Jefferson that had so much to do with the Declaration of Independence. These men were giants in thought and thinking and pondering, you know, what was going on in the world. And looking back through 5,000 years of our history, of the world history, and seeing what did work and what didn't work, and then putting it together in a way that we have today, known as the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all these things that are the backbone and the absolute supreme law of the land. It was the only time anything like that has ever been done in the history of the world that we know of. And at the time, nobody in the world was living under independence and the desires for self-fulfillment as far as what we wanted to do for opportunity. Nobody. They were all living under monarchs or monarchies. They were all being told what to do by one person who thought he knew or she knew best for them and how their lives should be run. We were different. The people who lived here were different. The people who born and raised and had the spirit of freedom in them and didn't want to be ruled by somebody 3,000, 4,000 miles away. We were different. Well, I'm going to say a third of our nation was different. A third of our nation was willing to go and fight for these ideals, ready to fight and take on the greatest and most powerful empire the world had ever seen at that point. 1/3 didn't really care which way it went, and the other third were bootlicking loyalists to the king. They would be today's Democrats, as so you would understand who's who. The people who fought would be known as constitutional conservatives and libertarians today. And the people in the middle who didn't care which way it would be moderate Democrats and rhino Republicans. See? People haven't changed. Just put labels on people for different things. But anyways, back to our Constitution. Sometimes I get started and I just can't walk away. Anyways, they were geniuses. So let's go through a quick part of the Constitution. Article 1 of our Constitution. It's about the legislative branch. It's about the House of Representatives, and it's about the Senate, how it is to function, what laws it can pass, the things it can accomplish. And in there's about a dozen things or responsibilities of the federal government. Remember, there wasn't a federal government. The new federal government. Once this was all adopted, there would be a new federal government. And there was about a dozen things that the federal government would be allowed to do. Of course, today they're in every aspect of our lives in complete and absolute violation of the Constitution. And the problem is we're going to move on to that in a few minutes because that's what we're going to be talking about. That's what this whole thing is today. Congress has specific responsibilities to generate revenue, to fund the government in its necessary and important functions, to declare war, to print money, impose taxes on tariffs, toll bridges, toll roads. I mean, there's like literally a dozen things. But that's all they're supposed to do. And once they have made and passed the laws between both houses, and it goes over to the president, it goes over to what's called Article 2. The Article 2 responsibilities are the president's administrations. He has several different cabinets at the time. He had a Department of War, he had a Department of State, he had a couple of departments that would run the necessary functions of the government. Today, the cabinet is huge, and there's so much power residing within the cabinet is a violation of the Constitution once again. Almost every one of those cabinets, except for like 4 of them, 5 of them, are in violation of the Constitution of the United States. And they shouldn't exist. They should be defunded immediately, and they should be removed, and they should be defunded everything. But once these things are signed into law, the president signs a law, it is the responsibility of the president of the United States to enforce the laws of past presidents and himself for the United States of America and make sure that those laws are being followed with exactness. But anyways, the thing I want to talk about today and today's subject is going to be Article 3, the Judiciary. The only court the Constitution of the United States sets up is the Supreme Court of the United States. There's only one court. One single court. But Congress, as part of their Article 1 responsibilities, can set up other courts as they see necessary. That's why today we have appellate courts. That's why we have district courts, federal district courts and federal appellate courts. Congress set that up. They can make as many courts as they want. They can do whatever they like to do. They can even change the configuration of the Supreme Court. And from its inception, they have. But for 100 and some odd years, I can't remember what it is, 150, 60 years, the Supreme Court has had 9 members on it. 9 members only. At one point they had 5, and they had, they've had different numbers. But 9 seems to be the number that has worked the best and has had the most diverse opinions on the Constitution when it comes to law. Now, to me, the ideal Supreme Court would be 9 members that are neither Republican or Democrat, but could be looked at in their rulings and in their philosophies on how they have approached the laws that they have while they were judges in other courts as 100% constitutionally based, that they followed the Constitution first and foremost, and the other laws of the land that the Constitution supports. I know this is impossible. Having 9 people that are totally focused like that would be nearly impossible to have. But you can have a basis where they would all come to agree that the most important thing to do would be to follow the Constitution in all things. Not political ideology, not personal beliefs, but the Constitution. I heard somebody say, and this is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, because I had a discussion with a liberal friend of mine about the Constitution of the United States and the Supreme Court, and I said that exact same thing. My ideal court would be a court that would follow the Constitution and the original intent 100%, and 100% of the members would be following that exact law, the Constitution and the original intent. And he said, thinking that he was going to say something profound and just proved himself to be somewhat of an idiot, he goes, well, don't you believe that following the Constitution is political activism or judicial activism? No, it's called following the Constitution, you moron. There's no such thing as following the Constitution being politically motivated. It's called following the Constitution, just like you swore to do when you took the oath. Just like everybody who's in politics or the military does. They swear to follow the Constitution. Most of them do not, except for our military tries the hardest out of all of them. I just thought it was one of the dumbest things I'd ever heard. Of course, he wants 9 justices to be on the side of implementing Marxist ideology on America. So he looks at anything besides that as being a threat or political or judicial activism as following the Constitution. Geez, these people, how they twist their brains into these little tiny knots. Well, little tiny brains into little tiny knots. Let's go there. I wrote down some notes down here. Oh, another point. I went right past this and came back to it. Another way that the Supreme Court of the United States is insulated, or they tried to insulate judges within the federal system, judiciary, so that they can be independent and they don't have to seek re-election. They don't have to do this. They have lifetime appointments. Now, to a certain degree, I have to agree that, sometimes a lifetime appointment can be beneficial. But I think we've gotten to a point where maybe seeing some turnover, some new blood, some new thoughts, some not unconstitutional thoughts, but from a younger group of people, maybe term limits is not a bad idea. I've heard Democrats talk about that, but they want term limits just to get rid of the people they don't want. I think term limits, if done correctly, would be a constant renewal and vibrancy to the court of bringing in fresh new people that are ready to take and fight for the Constitution. I think 12 years as a Supreme Court justice would be a good term limit for them. Maybe 12 years doing as a federal judge in either the appellate or in just the district court would be fine. But I also believe 12 years for a congressman, either a House or a Senate, is more than enough time too. I believe some things have got to change in a lot of ways, but that's just my opinion. So anyways, lifetime appointments. Don't have a problem with it for the most part, unless they get some crazy people in there, and we have 3 right now that are basically just nothing more than Democrat Party promoters. They don't follow the Constitution; they follow the dictates of the Democrat Party and its beliefs. So, anyways, I understand why the Founding Fathers did that. Very brilliant move at the time. Very brilliant. Insulate them. Keep them from having to participate in politics, even though many times what they do believe in is politics. Some people say, yeah, well, Republicans have the guys in there voting for them. Well, maybe there's a couple. There's a couple in there. I just don't think they understand the full extent of their responsibilities within the Constitution of the United States. And I also think that there's a few in there right now that understand that their job is to absolutely pull out the Constitution anytime a problem comes across their desk, and they're supposed to apply the Constitution in its original intent to that. So, see, we have a mix again. It's almost like a 3-3-3 again. 1/3 of our country went to war, 1/3 sat back, and 1/3 were bootlicking loyalists to the king. So I think we have 3 that are very strong constitutionalists, 3 that are so-so and can be swayed a little bit, and 3 that are just bootlickers to the Democrat Party, basically, and the philosophy of Karl Marx more than the Constitution. Let me fill this out here. I'm trying to remember where I was. I wrote down a couple notes here, and I think I just passed up a whole bunch of it. When I was talking a little bit about this, I wrote down a question here. Are leftist appointees, like the 3 that we have on there right now, are they good? Is it a good practice having them on? Have they been beneficial to the court? Have they been beneficial to the nation? Have they upheld the Constitution? And the answer to that is no, they don't. They vote how the Democrat Party wants them to vote. See, that's the problem. When Democrats appoint justices, judges, they vote with the Democrat Party, and they're always loyal to the Democrat Party. Whereas when Republicans do it, you get some of them that are wishy-washy on their beliefs in the Constitution, but then sometimes you'll get a couple of them in there from when Republicans appoint them that are firm and strong on the Constitution. So leftists are bad all the time for the court. They're always horrible. They're always destructive, and they need to be kept at a very, very low minimum. And that's just how that goes, I guess. So the independent judiciary that we have today was extremely important to our founding fathers. And we see why. We see why it was so important to have men that weren't trying to run for re-election and appease anybody, but were just going to be in there and try to apply it. Is it a perfect system? Well, the process and the thought behind it, yeah. It's amazing what they came up with. It's amazing how they came to figure some of these things out. And why. But people aren't perfect. Nothing is perfect. Even the people I think revere as far as being constitutionalists in the Supreme Court today, they have some flaws too. But they're doing the very best they can to uphold the Constitution. So that is all for this episode. And that's part one of this as an independent judiciary. So take it away, Talbot.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.